Well, I think there is a distinction in terms of how some people would look at those two areas, in that for a long time people thought of employee communication as a very one-way process, and it was really an area where we communicated sort of from one to many, disseminating information, much more of a tell and sell model than really any dialogue or what then became engagement. The whole shift to employee engagement then began to connote that whole idea that it's two-way or multi-dimensional, which is even more important. But there's another very critical shift, I think, in terms of what distinguishes the two, and that's that employee communication was really an offshoot of general journalism. And the original thought and idea was to bring journalistic skills to the workplace. What employee engagement is really all about is bringing a whole array of other skills as well, and other disciplines, anthropology, sociology, psychology. It's all around how do we actually connect people emotionally to the work that they're doing every day, which is different than how do we share information with them. So that's the distinction. Now, the one thing I will say is that as more and more people are becoming more aligned with the concept of engagement, the term employee communication has shifted as well and is often looked at as a much more two-way process.
So sort of, yeah.
So they can, in some people's minds they're the same, and in other people's minds there still would be a distinction. Okay. I think the companies that really understand employee engagement have a couple things in common. One is that they start with listening and really want to understand what is our employee population all about, what are the issues, what are the people who are closest to the work know about what we need to do, the people who are closest to the customer. And this is very different than the old model of somebody with a big title telling everybody else what to do. So what you see with some of these companies is that there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of energy, that there's a lot of co-creation in the types of work we do, instead of management telling or selling people. And the other thing we're seeing now, of course, is a lot of use of social media, but that's really often been used as a channel for a lot of the dialogue and co-creation. We're also seeing companies that are becoming much, much more aware of the need to really connect at an emotional level to their brand, their vision, their values, and kind of get really clear to the core of who are we really, and how do we connect our employees with that. You know, whenever I look at how might you think of the way employee engagement connects to making a business case for what we do as communication people, the first thing I would say to leadership is show me leadership without communication. Show me one instance where you could say that somebody was actually leading. Now maybe they weren't talking, maybe it was through their actions, it was through their behaviors, their models, but in reality you can't have leadership without communication. So I think the case becomes very clear. The other thing that we're seeing a lot now too is the companies are really realizing that their reputation is very much driven by their behavior, and it's about having a good story well told, not just telling a good story. And so having employees engaged in really understanding how to represent the company at every point of contact is absolutely critical to success. You know, I think there's a myth that you really can't measure it and that it's very difficult to have metrics. And what we've seen a lot is that people try to connect and measure employee engagement by certain satisfaction levels or the kind of happy whistle while you work types of things. And we can go way, way further than that. In fact, there is some amazing work being done where you can actually see causal relationships between certain engagement behaviors and actual business outcomes. And I mean serious outcomes. Reducing absenteeism, increasing productivity, improving the financial performance of the organization. And there's a wonderful company in Michigan called EMPA that has actually shown this in a direct causal link, not correlative at all, that you can prove that with certain behaviors you can actually create the performance in the organization. This is a fabulous, fabulous time to be in this field, and the whole field of public relations, because really management everywhere in every company I'm talking to has come to recognize that short of the CEO, it's the public relations people who are really the ones who are knitting together all of the issues and opportunities for the corporations. So, you know, for years and years and years we heard people talking about being at the table. We are at the table.